Hi everyone, welcome back to the kitchen. Today we have a little bit of a departure. Today we're going to do a little education time. I have had a lot of people ask over the years, what's the difference between parchment paper and wax paper? Or is there a difference? Today we're going to be addressing that question, and I can't wait to show you how this all comes together. Burning question. I've gotten this question more than once over the years. Is there a difference between parchment paper and wax paper? How do I know what to use when? Do I need both? The main answer here, parchment paper, wax paper are definitely not one and the same. So basically, parchment paper is coated with silicone and it's reusable several times. This particular brand says that you can reuse theirs up to 3 times. Wax paper cannot be put in the oven. I don't care what anybody tells you. Wax paper is very thin paper that is literally coated with wax. And the paper can possibly ignite when put in the oven and exposed to high temperatures. So from a safety perspective, putting wax paper in the oven is a big no-no and definitely not advisable. Wax paper is great for anytime you have, like if you're going to dip candy and you need a surface to put it on, wax paper is an option. Parchment paper also an option. If you like to wrap homemade caramel candies or something like that, wax paper definitely an option, also parchment paper. So there are times when both of these can be used interchangeably. The only time that they cannot be used interchangeably is when we are applying heat of any kind, because you definitely don't want to put wax paper in the oven. Did your mom wrap your sandwiches in wax paper? My mom wrapped my sandwiches in wax paper, and this was before sandwich bags came on the scene. If you take it back a few decades, wax paper was the go-to for wrapping foods to take on the go. You pack your brown bag lunch, you wrap your sandwich in some wax paper. Parchment paper is great also if you're going to do like a hobo dinner, where also if you're going to get fancy and Frenchy and you're going to call it en papillote, you would put fish or shrimp or a piece of chicken in the parchment with some vegetables and some seasonings, and you would tightly wrap it, and then it would be a little bundle. You would put it in the oven and then it would cook or steam inside that parchment paper. Then you would serve it in the packet and it would look all fancy and stuff. Mostly what I use parchment paper for, and let's be real, is just to line cookie sheets. I use it when I lay out my spices for my spice mixes that I share with you guys. You've seen me. I'll lay out all the spices, and then when it's time to mix it up, I just bundle it up and we pour it right on into the jar. It makes for a very good mechanism in which to transport small items. You can also roll this into a funnel, and then you can use the parchment paper as a funnel to give yourself more of an area if you're pouring something inside of a jar, and it helps you avoid spilling. I always line my cake pans when I make layer cakes, or if I'm making a cake that's going to be turned out of the pan, I always line my cake pans with parchment. But there is a trick. You want to go ahead and you want to make sure that you spray your pan, even if it is nonstick, with a liberal amount of cooking oil spray. And then you're going to go ahead and you're going to cut your parchment, and I'll show you how I do that. Okay, so we're going to take you back to elementary school art class. We have to make a square before we make a circle. So because we have a rectangle of parchment, we're going to make a square. So it's just easier if you go ahead and cut this extra off. Just like that. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to keep folding this into itself, into triangles. Try not to mash the point if possible. Just keep folding this in half. And in half. About 3 or 4 times. 4 times is really good, but sometimes you're going to feel like it's too thick and couldn't possibly go anymore. Then you're going to get your pan. Now this is a 9-inch cake pan. You're going to kind of estimate the center like that. And then you're going to cut it, but you're going to cut it with a little bit of a curve. Just a little whisper of a curve. You see how I did that? Then pretend we have sprayed that with our cooking oil spray. and you have a perfect little liner for your cake pan. At which point you would mash it down. It's going to stick to that oil that you've already sprayed in there. Then you're going to spray it again. You want this to stay flat. Then you're going to pour your cake batter in there, and when you bake it and it cools off, you can flip it out, and you're going to have a beautiful bottom on your cake, and it's going to be perfectly baked. And also the reality is, if you didn't want to make a perfect circle and you just wanted to put a square of parchment down in there, that's going to work fine too, because the surface area is really what's going to matter. And then when you take it out, you're going to have a nice smooth bottom, and it's going to be evenly cooked, and it's going to be beautiful. And it's also, the main reason for this is to prevent your cake from sticking in the bottom of the pan. And now I'm going to show you something you can do with wax paper that I just recently learned. So I'm just going to cut a little piece. It doesn't even matter if it's perfect. None of this matters if it's perfect, because you can just use it all. I'm going to just kind of roll this up into a little stick of wax paper. And then I'm going to take my hand can opener, because this is the only kind of can opener that I like to use. And I'm going to run this wax paper through the can opener, and that's going to actually kind of give these gears and this blade a little more glide, so that next time you open a can, it's going to work a little more smoothly, and it's going to extend the life of your can opener. Because I personally like a hand can opener instead of an electric, but I think that you could probably make that work on an electric can opener as well. You would just need to look at the mechanism and see how you can put that little piece of wax paper in there. Another great thing you can do with wax paper is, if you have chrome fixtures on your sinks, you can crumble this a little bit, and then you can rub this on your chrome fixtures, and it's going to shine them up really, really nicely. It's going to take water spots out, and it's going to help your chrome to shine beautifully. And it will give a little bit of a protective coating, so that water will just wick away from it. So that's another helpful hint. Another great thing that you can do with parchment paper, especially, doesn't matter, you just grab a hunk of parchment paper. You take a piece of parchment paper depending on the size of the space you need to fill. You can crumble it up, and then you can just put the paper on top of the ice cream and then put the lid on it. This is going to prevent crystallization and freezer burn for a temporary amount of time. This is going to help prevent freezer burn and crystallization on the surface of the ice cream that's remaining in the carton. So that's another helpful hint. So to wrap things up, I just want to mention, both of these items are really great. If you put something in the microwave and you need to cover it up so to avoid splatter all over, grab a sheet of wax paper or parchment, and that will help you keep your microwave ovens nice and clean. And then, you know, if you are a child of our generation, Rick just reminded me the other day of something that he used to do, and I remember doing this as a child, to take a big old piece of your mama's wax paper down to the playground with you and rub it on the sliding board.
Or put it under your butt.
Or put it under your butt so you could slide down super fast. But I personally remember being older than some of the kids in the neighborhood and being the one who would take the wax paper down, and then we would just crinkle up a big old ball of wax paper and rub it all over the sliding board, and that would give the sliding board new life, and it would make you go super fast, even if you weren't, but in your brain you thought you were, because that's part of being a kid, you know, going faster as fast as you could possibly go. And wax paper helps you achieve that. If you're going to make a mess, if you're going to have your kids finger paint or do something messy, if you're going to be using your glue gun or something that's going to be making a little bit of a mess, this parchment paper is really great to put down because it's easy cleanup. You just roll it up, and you know, I don't subscribe to a newspaper anymore, so newspapers are slowly becoming a thing of the past in the home as well. That's something to consider because the easier you can clean something up, the better, in my opinion. So that is the difference between parchment paper and wax paper. You can use this anywhere, but in the oven, you guys make the choice that is best for you and your kitchen and your family. I hope this answers some questions. I hope you learned something. I hope I gave you some tips and tricks you hadn't thought of before. and I hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, I'll see ya.